Hello everyone. I just wanted to have a quick discussion today. I wanted to do a different video, so kick back and relax. This is going to be a little different than most. I wanted to talk today starting with the economy, and we'll take it from there. I'm seeing so many people that are out of work, that are in need of the stimulus from the government, that are relying on their families now more than ever before. And at the same time, we see the grand disparity where the stock market is at a record high, and it looks like in the medium term, it might actually go higher. Who knows on the short term, that's always volatile, but it doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. And then we go into the different levels of absurdity. I was reading an article about how video games, these particular collectible video games, are selling for upwards of $50,000 for a video game that people may not even want to play. They just put it up on their shelf. The same thing like the playing cards that are, always for many, many years have been something that people want to trade back and forth, but they are actually gaining more money than ever before. $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 for some of these cards. And you look at all of the different types of, I don't want to call them assets, but people are putting their money into things that are retrieving, this massive amount of money back. And it just makes you think of what exactly is going on. It's absurd when you see how much money is flowing into a lot of these different things where typically that wouldn't be the case. And of course, underlying all of this is what the central banks are doing. Exactly what are they doing? You know it, I know it. They've reduced interest rates all the way down to the floor. And when you do that, the cost of doing business goes down. And that could be for trading, that could be for investing, that could be for real estate. Look at what people are doing as a result of the lower and lower interest rates. Of course, they're refinancing their properties, and doing so decreases the cost of doing business. And I don't blame anybody. I think that's a good thing for the most part for people who are doing this for a wise purpose. You don't want to actually save that money and then take your equity out and then spend it on nonsense. No, you are doing a good thing if you can lower your monthly payments. That's obviously smart. But you look at the risk that people are taking today, and it has never been higher. And I just wonder why, with all of these people that are unable to find a job, that their neighbors, their families, their friends, they're relying on government stimulus. You look around and you see how many people are suffering, how many people in the tent cities, how many people are struggling in one way, shape, or form, and they're taking these risks. And whenever you have a disparity, it doesn't get better. Did the roaring 20s benefit people as we moved into the 30s? No, a lot of people got hurt by this. Of course, it is different every single time, right? You are going to have issues that were present back then that will not be present today. You don't have all the same conditions, and that's okay. Because when you look at this on a major scale, wide scale, let's go back as far as you want, there are patterns that do repeat, that do take place, and you need to pay attention. So there's so many things that we can discuss, but I would like to just bring up a point by which is the Federal Reserve capable of actually sustaining a permanently high plateau? And of course, my short answer to that is absolutely not. And I am starting to realize that more and more people do believe that the Federal Reserve can sustain a stock market to rise forever. As long as they do QE, there will be no problem. I think that is a little bit foolish, but to some degree, I completely understand. You look at the S&P 500, you look at the Fed's balance sheet, or you look at the major central banks' balance sheets, and they're in lockstep. I have documented that many times before. In fact, if you do a search online and you type in 60 seconds, the money GPS, you will get my explanation on that. It's a 60-second video completely breaking down how it works. But for this, we need to understand that it's not necessarily the Federal Reserve and their actions keeping the markets elevated. underneath that, because you look at the amount of money that they print, it isn't enough to actually support the markets directly. It's the fact that the Federal Reserve is there doing it that makes the rest of the market function, because they're there simply just in case. Now, the Federal Reserve's balance sheet may one day be boosted all the way up so that they are the ones buying everything and anything, and that's when you get confetti money. And that, to me, is the most worrisome factor. Average person, they have no idea. They don't care. They're not going to ever care even after they're in the breadlines. It just doesn't matter to them. They are more focused on nonsense, but that's just the way it is. What I think most people should do, and before I forget, I'm releasing a series of videos. It's going to be 10 videos, very short, just a few minutes each, and they will be releasing on how to fix the economy. And I will release this on my YouTube channel, so everybody will have it. But some of those topics that I want to discuss right now are so simple, and yet will never be suggested by the mainstream. You know, when you look at what the Federal Reserve does, they have no accountability and no transparency. You see, because they use this terminology of independence as a way of getting around their actions, needing to actually support what they do on a daily basis. It's as if they don't have to be their actions don't need to be in the benefit of the majority, even though they absolutely should, because that's your currency. Doesn't matter what country you're in, the Federal Reserve for the US, the Bank of Canada for Canada, and so on, those central banks should, because that's your currency you are forced to use. When you have an employer and you ask to get paid, that employer needs to pay you in what is legal tender. If you go to the store, they want legal tender. And they do this on purpose. There's no competing currencies allowed. That's why they don't like anything but everything else that comes up in its way, whether it's from 5,000 years ago or whether it was created in the last decade. They don't like competition. And that tells you something about their system, how weak, how fragile, how frail it is. And it just shows how actually problematic it can be, because we're relying on these governments to do so much and it doesn't work. So one of the things, to me, the first step is to simply get away from the idea that the central bank needs to do everything for us. That is number one, as far as I'm concerned. If we could simply get away from that, I think we'll be in a lot better shape. They don't need to reduce interest rates all the time. They don't need to print so much money and buy mortgage-backed securities. That doesn't help me. Buying mortgage-backed securities doesn't help me, doesn't help you, okay? And what I think we have, one of the major issues today is that there's a lot of people, number one, unemployed, and there are a lot of people with jobs displaced, okay? They don't have a place to go to after. It's not as if they're unemployed, they'll get rehired later. The retail industry, for one, is being decimated. So you're gonna have a lot of these empty Sears, JCPenney, Macy's, and so on, completely empty. And I think some of them will be occupied by Amazon and so on, but you're going to have a lot. Those malls are empty. We've got a problem. We need to fill them. So something else needs to go in there, and it could be something like growing food indoors that could actually help a lot of people growing food locally in the community. I've seen this on a smaller scale and medium-sized scale, and it would be very interesting to see if every single community had these indoor farms. And that's just something. That's just me ranting. I'm talking. I don't know what will come of it, but if those can be utilized, I think some of the dangers could be mitigated, okay? Some of the dangers that we are experiencing today, because you're gonna have a lot of people who are in need of new work. They're in need of things that maybe we saw with the supply chain disruptions were such a problem for so many people, and yet that wasn't handled properly. You can clearly see how prices escalated so high, not just for food, but of course for everything else, because we rely on importing so much, whether that's the raw materials. For example, you want to get copper, You need that in all forms of construction. And what? Are you growing it in your backyard? Of course not. You have to import that. But if the supply chain is disrupted, you're going to have some serious cost effects that are dramatic, to say the least. And that is very clear today. It's still going on, of course. And you don't necessarily want to have everything in your own country. And if you don't make it here, then, well, you don't want it. Well, you'll be left with a lot of things that are missing, I assure you. But regardless, these are just some of the things. When we have problems, we need to realize that there are potential opportunities, but we as individuals need to come up with our own solutions. I really tried to tell people about my Amazon course as one method of earning an income on the side, so that if something bad does happen, if they do lose a job, that they'll have a secondary income. That's why I've talked about, if you go to my how-to and solutions playlist, you will see this, how people should be earning an income on the side through different means. Maybe you're a baker. You could start to learn how to do, that the business of getting the word around. Maybe you're a handyman. Maybe you're an electrician. Maybe you can fix things around the house, and you could do that for your neighbors and earn a little bit of cash. And that might have been the difference between you not being able to eat and being just fine, while a period of time where you don't have employment really stands and extends. Anyway, I don't want to rant on too much. I hope I've made sense. I hope that this playlist that I will be releasing very soon, all of the PowerPoint slides are all done. I just need to go through the actual materials, get them posted and so on. So stay tuned for that. I know it will be informative. I know I will be referencing it in the future. And there's a lot more coming, I assure you. So anyway, I'm going to end the video there. If you found it informative, give me that thumbs up. And I'll catch you on the next one.